I am one with the heart of the Father. I am one with God. Say that last line, please.
I am one with God.
Let's get comfortable in our seats. And with that knowledge, I am one with God, we can release, right? We can release. We can know for this moment that we are supported by our chair. The chair is supported by the floor, and the floor is supported by the earth, and all is supported by divine spirit. We are here this morning knowing that we are one and we are supported. That we do not go it alone. Let's take that knowledge that we are one, we are supported, and we do not go it alone into a couple of minutes of silence. As we return our awareness to this place and time, we do so with a deeper knowing and understanding of this truth, that we are one, we are supported, and we do not go it alone. Knowing this in a deep way helps us face whatever we must in our lives, so that we can grow through our challenges and our experiences. We give thanks for all opportunities to grow and deepen who we are. We give thanks for all else, and so it is. Amen. So that's the title of my talk today, Heaven or Hell, which is it? Which is it? Which one do you want to live in? Heaven? Can I hear heaven? Heaven, right now. So we have, today is Palm Sunday, right? Today is Palm Sunday. And this is a short version of a longer passage that I'm going to read. The next day, the great crowd that had come for the festival heard that Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem. They took palm branches and went out to meet him, shouting, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the King of Israel." Jesus found a donkey and sat on it, as it is written, "Do not be afraid, daughter Zion. See your king coming, seated on a donkey's colt. At first, his disciples did not understand all this. Only after Jesus was glorified, they realized that these things had been written about him and that these things had been done to him. So they were having an awareness at this time. Jesus is the king that has been written about in days of old. Now the crowd that was with him when he called Lazarus from the tomb and raised him from the dead continued to spread the word. Many people, because they had heard that he had performed this sign, went out to meet him. So the Pharisees said to one another, "See, this is getting us nowhere. Look, the whole world has gone after him." Okay? So this is the situation that we have. That Jesus is acknowledging, I am this person. And he's been laying pretty low, really. I mean, he's been doing a lot of great works and so forth, but he hasn't been putting himself out there in that kind of proclaiming way. Well, on this day, he got, as was foretold, he got on the back of a donkey colt. He rode into town. People lauded him. He had only recently raised Lazarus from the dead, and word had gotten around. So people were paying attention, going, this is our king. And the Pharisees were going, whoa, we're going to have to do something about this guy, right? So one of the things that really strikes me about this is that Jesus knew what was going on. He knew that the Pharisees weren't crazy about his proclaiming or his acknowledging, let's say, what his role was. He knew what he was riding into that day, and he did it anyway. So let's back up a little bit to my title, and then we'll come around full circle to what I've just been talking about. We've been working with this Butterworth book for the last 3 months. Discover the Power Within You. And Butterworth says that Hades goes back to a word that means not to see. Isn't that kind of what hell is like? Right? When you're in a day that you go, this feels like hell, right? There's something we're not seeing. There's something that is not apparent to us. We're not able to see our way through it or past it. Right? And we might consciously do that. We might even do that. We might even say, I don't want to see. I don't want to know right now. And we stay in that place of unknowing and inability to see for hours, for days, for maybe even longer. Butterworth goes on to say that heaven comes from a Greek word meaning expanding. Isn't that nice? I read this part of this book and went, oh, this just clarifies so many things for me. Heaven is expanding. The expanding world, the expanding universe. We know, scientists tell us, our universe is continuing to expand. In fact, it's expanding at an accelerating rate. And don't we want to take that into our own lives as well and expand? Now, something else had happened recently before this Palm Sunday situation. Jesus had visited Mary and Martha and Lazarus just a few days before the Palm Sunday situation. And this is what we find in John. Mary took a pound of costly perfume made of pure nard, which we know is an essential oil made from flowers. And it was very precious in those days. And she took a full pound, okay? Which my interpretation in my Bible says that cost about a year's wages in those days. So this is what she did. And she anointed Jesus' feet and wiped them with her hair, okay? Now, Judas said, what are you doing with that oil, Mary? You should have sold it and given the money to the poor. Because this is a lot of money you just poured on this guy's feet. And Jesus said, leave her alone. She bought it for the day of my burial. You will always have the poor with you, but you do not always have me. So this is this awareness that Jesus knew what was coming. He knew what was coming. And he knew that riding into Jerusalem on the back of the donkey with people saying, oh, look at our Lord, was just going to help it come to fruition. But he did it anyway. It was his calling. It was his expanding, right? It was his version of heaven. It was his version of saying, I see this, I know this, I'm doing it, I'm fully present. Butterworth says, no matter the level of your experiences at the moment, you are not done yet. There is more in you. Isn't that nice? There is more in you. And he goes on to say, grow through as you go through challenges. That's one of those nice little phrases to remember, isn't it? Grow through as you go through challenges. Otherwise, what's the point? Right? Otherwise, those challenges are just hell, literally, because we're not seeing what's the opportunity here. What is there here that I can take forward in my life? Well, you know, as the universe has it, whenever we're studying or learning something, we get opportunities to practice, right? So my opportunity this week to practice was, I got a bill.
Really?
I got a bill from the hospital for some lab work that Zoya had done. Now this is lab work that Zoya has done each year. And I remembered either not paying for it last year or paying very little for it. And this bill was in excess of $1,300. Yeah, so it really kind of took me back. So I called the insurance company and they said, no, we don't pay this because this is for an existing condition. And I called the hospital and they said, well, all we know is that we sent you this bill. And then I was going to call and they said, you really need to talk to the insurance more. So I went to call the insurance back, they closed. Because they were on Central Time, right? So they had closed. I went to call the hospital back, in those minutes the hospital had closed. So I went, right? I mean, I'd like to say I went, okay, well that's fine. I went, why has everybody closed their offices? I'm on a track, I want to figure this out and I want to resolve it, right?
Yeah.
There was a wonderful piece in this morning's Daily Word. What was that? I wait for answers to be revealed. Do we do that very well? I wait for answers to be revealed, for my faith is strong and anchored in God. Okay. I wait for answers. Often we're going, I don't want to wait for that answer, right? I would like to know that answer now. So I was frustrated, spent part of the evening frustrated, went to bed still thinking about what is this, started counting backwards. You know, what's your trick for going to sleep? That's one of my tricks. Counting backwards from 100. Okay? And then from there I can kind of go into a meditation, a little quiet place and so forth. So I went to sleep. Woke up in the morning thinking, why did I get this bill? What is this bill about? It's still with me. Dang. But in that time, I had this awareness. I went, I bet what happened. I got the bill from the hospital. They were supposed to send it to LabCorp. And LabCorp has contracted rates with my insurance company. And I woke up going, that's what happened. The hospital, and the hospital is the provider for LabCorp, so it gets a little complicated there. But I woke up with this awareness going, that's what happened. The hospital did the test instead of LabCorp. And I was like, wow. It took me, I needed that, right? I needed that period of time to settle things out and have an awareness, to get some clarity. So I called the insurance company and they said, oh yeah, it looks like that's what happened, because the bill did come from the hospital and it probably should have come from LabCorp. And yes, you did pay for this yourself last year, but it was $9. And I went, okay, that sounds more like it. So they said, call your doctor and see what was on the order. So I called the doctor and they said, 99% of the time we put, you know, the provider, LabCorp should have been right on top. We'll follow it through, we'll call the hospital, we'll get the bill for you, we'll track it through. All of a sudden I'm going, not only did I have this awareness, but I don't need to do this. I am not alone. I am not alone. So, you know, this is it. Grow through as you go through challenges. And don't we need this reminder again and again and again? And it's part of our heaven, right? If heaven means expanding, it's part of our heaven to have these kinds of experiences. Now, I'm reading another book right now. We have a class coming up that's starting in 1 to 3 weeks from today that I encourage people to think about signing up for. 2 weeks from today. It's 2 weeks from today, isn't it? Thank you. Yes, April 12th, 2 weeks from today. And we're using in that class the Butterworth book, Spiritual Economics, which is a fantastic book, and another book called The Soul of Money by Lynn Twist. And you can take this class for credit with Unity Village if you want to, but you don't need to do that. You don't need to take it for credit. Donna wants to take it for credit. But other people can just, there's an outline in the back, there's a sign up in the back, and you can just take it like you would any other class here. Well, this is something I was reading in her book. Wealthy comes from the root word, the same root word as well-being. Well-being. It is meant to connote not only money, but also a rich and satisfying life. And that's the direction this class is going to go. Not only money, but a rich and satisfying life. Because if you're wealthy, really wealthy, in this sense, you have a rich and satisfying life. Lynn Twist points out, you can have a lot of money and not have a rich and satisfying life. You can have a frustrating life. You can have an annoying life. You can have all kinds of things. It's not necessarily pegged to how much money you have, but it's about having a rich and satisfying life. So we have things like health, wealth, prosperity, longevity, success, and we can define success in lots of ways. What are some ways you define success?
Lots of relationships.
Lots of relationships. Friends.
Peace of mind.
Peace of mind. Yes. What else helps you feel successful?
Power and control.
There you go.
Okay.
Sure.
This is what you get.
Making a difference.
Making a difference in the world. Making a difference in the world. Doing what's your part to do. So there are lots of ways that we can think about success. Now, it's interesting because look we have the exact same language here in John. A rich and satisfying life. Lynn Twist used that, right? Wealthy, having a rich and satisfying life. And in John, we read the same words, having a rich and satisfying life. Now, I want to read you this longer passage because it's really a sweet piece out of the Bible. I feel like it comes from Proverbs because it's like that, but that's not where it comes from. It comes from John. Jesus is speaking. I tell you the truth. Anyone who sneaks over the wall of a sheepfold rather than going through the gate must surely be a thief and a robber. But the one who enters through the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep recognize his voice and come to him. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. After he has gathered his own flock, he walks ahead of them, and they follow him because they know his voice. Right? We have this picture of trust. They won't follow a stranger. They will run from him because they don't know his voice. I tell you the truth. I am the gate for the sheep. My purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life. That's what we hear in John. And there are different ways this is translated. Another way this is translated is, I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. Right? So we move into this language of abundance or prosperity or any of those words you want to put on it. But we don't want to get stuck on that meaning only dollar bills, because that's not a true expanding of our life and our life consciousness. A rich and satisfying life. Lynn Twist also says, can we recognize that better comes from not more, but in deepening our experience with what's already there? She spends a lot of time in this book talking about this, saying, we can be on a mission in our lives to acquire more and more and more and more and more and more and more. And when does it end? It never ends. Because the goal is more and more and more and more and more. And it just becomes anxiety and frustration because you're never there. She says, this is a place we can live, deepening our experience with what's already there. And what happens when you deepen your experience with what's already there? You expand it, exactly. When we deepen our experience with what's already there, there's more of it. We expand it because we're using it and exploring it and growing it by its use, right? We all know that in our lives. Or we can go to Wayne Dyer. There are lots of people who say similar things. Abundance is not something we acquire, it is something we tune into. It is something we tune into. So, there are all kinds of things that support us when we're on a quest to learn, right? So I'm thinking about this talk this week, and Donna reminded me in the Daily Word, I also got an email from Donna, this Wednesday, the Daily Word is prosperity. There you are, okay? Grounded in faith, my prosperity grows. Now here's part of that Daily Word. I focus on the many blessings I have experienced in my life, right? Looking at what's already there. I replace any thoughts of lack with an affirmation of abundance. I release any thoughts that stray from abundance, and this is the season of gardening. Like the gardener, I express gratitude for each blessing that arises. Now, isn't that a different place to be and to think about prosperity and abundance than acquire, more? But to say, what do I have now? What am I thankful for? How can I use what I have now? And when I have thoughts that stray from abundance, let me release them. Let me give them no power. Let me let them go away and let my own life expand. So as we come back to this, Hades meaning not to see, heaven meaning expanding, we can also go to Thomas Edison. When you have exhausted all possibilities, remember this, you haven't. Isn't that great?
Yes.
I read this and I just did the same thing. I just had to smile because what a story. This guy, he just kept trying things. When you have exhausted all possibilities, remember this, you haven't. Because your life is about expanding and about growing. And we can go back to the Palm Sunday story with Jesus riding into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey. He saw, he knew, he understood, and he made the choice that day to continue to expand his life in that direction. Whoops.
I went way too far.
Oh. And from Butterworth, you are not done yet. You are not done yet. Let's turn that into I am not done yet and say that with me.
I
I am not done yet.